people greet me very warmly, even if it's for a character that they hated. Like if
Right.
it's like Victor Strand or Exxon Zola or The Color Purple or something, people are really affectionate to me. And I think I get a thing that I don't think a lot of people get because some of my colleagues, they said something about that saying, people want to hug you all the time. I'm like,
Right.
yeah, they do. People are like, oh my gosh, can I have a hug? And so whatever that is, whatever that connection is, that feels good. So I'm getting more hugs out in the world, which is kind of awesome.
Prepare your ears, humans. Happy, sad, confused begins now.
Hey guys, Josh here. Welcome to another edition of Happy, Sad, Confused. This week we have Oscar nominee, make that two-time Oscar nominee, Colman Domingo. He is on the show talking Sing Sing and his extraordinary career as a star of stage and screen. One of the best out there, and he's finally on the podcast, and he more than lived up to all my expectations. So that is the main event coming up in just a second. But first, a couple reminders. Patreon.com/happy sad confused. We have so much going on. We have live events, autograph posters, merch, early access. What more can I give you? Check out our Patreon for all the goodies. Supporting us there lets us make more stuff for everybody. So check it out if you're so inclined. Speaking of stuff we're making, I missed doing comedy sketches. For those of you that have followed my career years back, a lot of my early stuff actually was scripted comedy for MTV and Comedy Central. And I lately have been having a real itch to do some of that again. So we did it. We made a really fun sketch with Jack Quaid. Jack Quaid, one of our faves. It is a parody of the Criterion Closet. It is called The Movie Cabinet. We're going to put the link in the show notes. If you haven't checked it out yet, check it out, because if a lot of people watch this, hopefully we'll be able to make more of these. And I was so proud of what we made, of what Jack performed, killed it, what my editor did, what our shooter did. It was a real team effort and a labor of love. And it is a loving homage parody of the Criterion Closet, which I adore. So hopefully the Criterion folks don't hate me. Hopefully Jared Leto and the Morbius team doesn't hate me. If you see it, you'll get it. So that's one thing to mention. There are live events coming up. We're going to announce them very, very soon, but there's a lot cooking. So if you're in the New York area, good things are coming. If you're on the New York area, there are also some good things coming. So stay tuned for all the announcements. Remember, again, go over to the Patreon. That's where you first get those early announcements. Okay. This is Colman Domingo. We cover a lot in this. We cover Sing Sing. We cover his beginnings in Philadelphia as a shy kid. We talk about the long up and down career he had before kind of clicking into another gear in recent years with Fear the Walking Dead and Euphoria. We talk about the future of Euphoria, his upcoming directing effort with Sydney Sweeney, working with Steven Spielberg on his upcoming film. Excited for that one. And Edgar Wright, he just shot a part in The Running Man. That's just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot in this conversation. Enjoy it. This is me and one of our greats working today. He is Colman Domingo. Enjoy. Mr. Colman Domingo, I don't even know how to introduce this gentleman. He's an actor. He's a playwright. He's a two-time Oscar nominee now, a recipient of an Emmy and so many awards, Tony nominee. He's one of the best in the business, and I've been trying to get him on this podcast for some time. I'm so glad it's happening now. Colman, thanks for being on the show, man. I appreciate
Oh,
it.
thanks, Josh. It's good to be here. Good to be here.
So a lot to talk about. First of all, big congrats again, two Oscar noms in a row, Rustin and now Sing Sing. It's funny. I've been listening and watching a lot of conversations you've given over the last few years. One back in 2018, you said, in about 6 years, I might not even be doing this. I might be teaching. I might have a shift coming. Well, I don't
I
know. You
meant
didn't.
that.
I mean, I was gonna say you didn't. Things didn't quite go according to plan in the best possible way. What? How do you explain
They
yourself?
did. I even became a professor at USC. I really thought, I mean, it was wild. I was really on that path of teaching or doing something else. And I think the universe had other plans for me, So I guess you stick around long enough, you suffer the slings and arrows and go through the ebbs and flows of this industry. And sometimes, the sun shines on you, and that's a blessing.
How do you, I rationalize in your brain where you're at now? I mean, you've been a great actor for a long time. And for those in the know, you've been a great actor and you performed, whether it's on big or small stages in different forms for over many years. And yet, the last 5, 6 years, you are being celebrated on a different level. So I guess I'm wondering how in your brain do you rationalize that? Because you're not necessarily, I would imagine, thinking you're a better actor than you were 15, 20 years ago. And yet you're being received in a much different way.
I think the only way I can rationalize it is thinking that is that everything takes time, I guess. And I guess
Yeah.
I've sort of been meeting the moment when it was time for me to meet it, whether, and sort of, I guess with this sort of amplification, but I've always been doing the work. So I guess
Right.
that's maybe for others, it's different. For me, it just feels like it feels very gradual. It feels like I know the work that I've been putting in, and I've been, whether I've been creating work for myself as a writer or directing, and finding different paths to create. So I feel like now it's like my colleagues would say this, the world has caught up to me because I've been doing this stuff, but under the radar and just doing it. And because I've constantly been shifting because I had to,
Right.
actually, I think I had to find ways to have agency in this industry, especially when the door, you know, no one was knocking on the door and or the phone wasn't ringing. I had to figure out how to create. And so I don't know if for me, the way I rationalize it is that I know, I'll say this. A lot of people can attest to their success by like, oh, these things happened, or people are like, well, where was that breakthrough moment? I just don't see it that way. I feel like my breakthroughs have always been about me building work and building work that I believed in and trusting that journey. And I do see that where I am now is because of a lot of hard work and a lot of not only hard work that I put in myself, but hard work, I don't know, to just keep rebuilding and build friendships and community,
Right.
whether it meant San Francisco or New York or London or whatever. But I feel like that's the way I rationalize it. I hope that answered your
No,
question.
it makes sense. And I would imagine also equating success not necessarily with an external, view of it, because that's out of your control. And hopefully like finding success and satisfaction from the actual process and the collaboration. I mean,
Yeah.
that has to be a shift early on in your career when any actor or creative type realizes I can only control what I can control.
Yeah, and I'm blessed that I learned that early on. And I'm always telling people, as people are like, "Oh man, I'm looking for opportunities." I'm like, you got to create the opportunities.
Yeah.
You can't complain about lack. You can only complain when you've been doing everything you possibly can in some way, shape, or form. But I'm like, you have to rethink how you're going to be engaged in this industry. I didn't naturally. I don't think I went into it wanting to be a director, writer, producer, but out of necessity, I became those things.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? Out of
Right. Right.
necessity. So I always had and on many different platforms. I know that the reason why I write musicals or plays or screenplays, I just had to keep shifting and shifting my talents and find out where I could be in service and do some work where I can survive in this
Yeah.
industry, to be honest. Mhm.
For you, especially again in these recent years where your stature, your profile has been elevated, it must be fascinating to walk through the world because you are so many different things to different people. Like you
Oh,
can
yeah.
walk down the street and to a teenage girl, you are, oh my God, that's the guy from Euphoria. And then there's
Yeah.
a Walking Dead fan over here, and then there's a theater nerd over here. That must be thrilling and discombobulating in the best possible way.
It is. Well, now it's like it's funny. I've noticed even in the last few years that I used to be able to figure out exactly where a person knew me from by the demographic,
Right.
but now I just can't because, I've been on more of these world platforms and I just have my fan base is every color, hue, gender, sexuality, background, you name it.
Yeah.
But the one thing that's common, which I just really love, is that people greet me very warmly, even if it's for a character that they hated. Like if
Right.
it's like Victor Strand or Exon Zola or The Color Purple or something, people are really affectionate to me. And I think I get a thing that I don't think a lot of people get because some of my colleagues, they said something about that saying, people want to hug you all the time. I'm like,
Right.
yeah, they do. People were like, oh my gosh, can I have a hug? And so whatever that is, whatever that connection is, that feels good. So I'm getting more hugs out in the world, which is kind of awesome.
Well, it's about the breadth of the work. I mean, if I'd only seen you in Zola, yeah, maybe I'd be a little scared of you, but I've seen you as the warmest
Or
characters.
titillated. You never know.
No judgments. No. But yeah, yeah. I feel like Christoph Waltz isn't being welcomed with hugs around the world. People are seeing him.
Exactly. Yeah, they see him and run. I don't know.
Let's give some love to Sig Sig. I mean, what a beautiful story. Congratulations, man. And a story that, look, I know this has been a long road. You've been talking about this way longer than you actually shot the film, like 18, 19 days, shot a few years back. And the fact that we're now talking about a film that's nominated for 3 Academy Awards and is back in theaters and still is just connecting with people. I don't know, just give me a sense of how meaningful that is to you as we sit here today.
It's very meaningful. I think even the way we created it was with so much care and respect and love um, towards these men they found theater to be their salvation and transform their lives. And so just being a part of creating that and creating it with them has been extraordinary. And then for it to be received as such, it's been being received, I think, with the intent that we poured into it. You don't make a film like this to make money. You make a film like this to be in service to humanity and to sort of change people's minds about something, affect them. And so I know that, people are just well up with emotion at the end of the film, but it also feels actionable, like they want to do something. They want to learn more and figure this out, this whole system of the prison industrial complex that I think a lot of times people don't think about.
Yeah.
So for me, it helps, if I could be a part of something that actually does some real change, that's, and I'm not naturally somebody who's drawn to anything that's like inherently political or anything,
Right.
but it is to change people in some way and change their minds and also change, in it, advocacy for people. Like I know that JJ, one of my castmates, was exonerated from his crime. He was wrongly accused of a crime just about a couple months ago. And I have to believe that the amplification of the film helped that out. So
Yeah, I
we
mean,
get to actually do some real change.
it's huge. I mean, like I remember we were talking before when you hopped on the Zoom about your roots and spending some time in Northern California. My aunt is a photographer actually in Berkeley and did this amazing exhibit when I was growing up in San Quentin and
Yeah.
documented these prisoners taught photography in San Quentin. And I remember seeing that as a kid, and even that humanizing, de-otherizing, whatever the word is,
Yeah.
of these folks that we are sadly often conditioned not to throw away the key. These
Yeah.
are not
Not
human
at
beings.
all. Exactly.
And
Yeah.
that is what this film, I think, I mean, really spoke to me about, and I'm sure speaking to many people.
I think,
Um,
what,
yeah,
and I have to say this because I think it's not said that often, but a lot of this big open heart of this film um, belongs to Greg Kuidar, my director. He cares so much, as he's learned by being a volunteer at Sing Sing, about these men and telling their stories and being in service to their stories. And that's why he invited every single one of us. And when he invited me to be a part of this and help create it from the ground up, I knew that was the task. It was that, oh, we're going to be open-hearted about this work, which is not always the case when making a film, but we're going
right.
to be but we're really going to mean what we say and say what we mean and create this beautiful, loving gift to humanity.
And then, not to mention, I think folks know by now, but to refresh, like the way you shot this, you're working with these men who have had this lived in experience, who lived versions of these lives that are being portrayed. And for you, what a challenge and what a unique opportunity. I mean, they can call BS to your face if they had the opportunity. I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
was that on your mind? Like, did you almost ask them to check
Yes.
you? Yeah,
I didn't ask them to check me, but that was my own internal terror, where I knew as I was navigating this territory, I didn't want to feel performative.
right.
I didn't want to feel like I was acting their experience any shape or form. So I had to find who Divine G was in me and bring a bit more of Coleman to the role to become that sort of everyman that I sort of, I don't know, envision Divine G to be. And just from what I gleaned from him. Um, so I know it called on something different, so I wouldn't be called out and like bullshit. I needed to fold myself in with them as they needed to sort of find their way with me as a person who knows how to navigate a film set. And I think so. We knew we were creating sort of this hybrid, and I knew I needed some touchstones in order to do the work, like casting Sean San Jose, who plays Mike. He's my very best friend of 30 years, or Sharon Washington, who plays the parole board hearing officer, um, who's like my sister, or Paul Racy. I needed sort of these anchors
Right.
so I could be as vulnerable and as open as possible. So there's no sort of polish to the work, but more of a grit and a rawness and a bit more unmasking that I think what was required.
Yeah, I've heard you describe this as kind of your most raw performance for, like, and I guess I'm wondering in practice, like, what is being stripped away? What are you like? What consciously are you trying not to do? Can you act in
Trying not to
opposition?
act. Trying
Try
not
not
to
to.
act.
But isn't that always the task? You don't want to see that, have anyone see you
That's the
acting.
hardest task for that's the hardest task for any actor. And I feel
Right.
like everyone arrives at it. You can arrive at it in your own unique way. But I think because I mean, listen, all these exercises that you do when you're a young student or in theater school or a practitioner of it, it tries to get you to just do the thing that is actually very honest, which is to listen and respond, to actually be a human being in space. That's actually hard, actually.
Right.
It's really hard. And it's
Shut
really
out
hard
all
to,
the noise and be in the
yeah,
moment
but
and act like a,
it's,
yeah,
yeah, and it's hard to trust that you're enough. That's actually, it's something psychologically to know that this is somebody who's been doing this work for over 30 years, is that I had to trust that Coleman
yeah,
was enough pour into this character. Not I was going to find and dial all these interesting things and research materials and all and build a character out. But I had to trust that my source material was inside of me, was
right.
my lived experience, was my experience in the theater and loving Shakespeare and all these things that I found similar with Divine G. Whitfield. I just had to put myself in the circumstances of a prison and these extraordinary circumstances that he was in, but while he's still holding on to his humanity and light and joy. So for me, I had to navigate that, and that required a different way of building than I ever was offered to build. I usually, people know I play things of size. I can play,
Sure.
or I really build a character out, you know what I mean, with a backstory and a history. And this one, I was like, no, this one's different. This one is the no more of a secret, but it's more Coleman than ever imagined.
And the irony, as you're alluding to, is like that's when you feel most exposed when you're not hiding behind an accent or something big or broad or whatever. It's when you're just like presenting a
Yeah.
version of yourself, like, oh shit, this is me. Like this is kind of
Well,
a version
because
of me.
they're playing versions of themselves. So I played a version of myself, and literally, I've only watched the film. I've watched the film in its final cut once because it was too much for me because I feel like it's too emotionally connected to me. There's something, a visceral thing that you feel that's still in your body. And I knew it was too much for me to watch and then go out and do a Q&A. I'm like, I just can't do it. And my castmates were, yeah, let's watch some before we go out. I'm like, I can't do
Yeah,
it.
I hear you. I hear you. Okay, if you'll indulge me, I know that you've talked a lot about your background, but for those that don't know, Philly kid, introverted, as I understand it, shy, are these the right adjectives?
I think
What was your safe space as a kid? Like, were you in the library? Were you watching TV? Where were you at?
my safe space was the West Philadelphia Public Library on 52nd and Chestnut Street, where I would go to every day after school. I would go straight to the library and stay there until dinner time. So my mother always knew where to find me, and my stepfather too. My sister would come and pick me up usually, and we go home and have dinner. But that was my safe space. It was I love books. I love the smell of books. I love the library was the most peaceful place. And there's a place where I can go and I can imagine everything outside of West Philly. It was always in the books, ancient Egypt and Rome and all the places I would travel and see. So it was already impressing upon me a great imagination. And I remember we had this, you could do film strips. And it's funny, I tell people about this and they're like, what are you talking about? They used to give us these film strips. You used to draw little scenes on each film strip. And so then you put in the projector and you tell what the story is. So you're making sort of your own film with like maybe 6 frames, which is cool. So I don't know. I feel like all that kind of stuff probably sort of, planted some seeds into being in this industry more than I even knew.
And obviously, it took you a while to kind of like discover this was going to be what you were going to pursue. You go to Temple, you pursue journalism at first, but like growing up, like were there actors or filmmakers that you were aware of that like really caught your eye, that like you internalized, that were resonant to you, or did that come later?
That all came later. I think my whole education when it comes to film, listen, the most that the exposure I had was television, like anyone else. I watched, Bob Newhart, and as a kid, which is funny, I used to love Bob Newhart when I was like 8. But and
I
I
mean,
watched the Flintstones and the Brady Bunch and
sure,
you know Alice and things like that. So
right,
I watched a lot of television. I didn't know that that I could become one of those people. Those people who lived on the screen, they live somewhere in this magical place called Hollywood. Someplace that I don't know where that is, but it's not within my reach. So I didn't know that I could have a path to becoming an actor or director, writer, anything. I had no idea. Because I grew up in a very, as a working class neighborhood in Philadelphia. And the dreams of our parents was for you to go to college and for you to do better than they did and get a job. It was about a job. I don't think I heard anybody having a career.
right.
Whatever the thing you did, you weren't supposed to enjoy. You came home from it tired.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
That, that's what it seemed like. It seemed like a career. You mean somebody who enjoys what they do?
Can't even fathom the idea of enjoying what you do. Did your, because so many years were spent again succeeding and then, going back and forth from big successes, Tony nominations, then back to bartending, this crazy kind of dichotomy of like highs and then just back to reality. What was you mentioned your parents, and I know you talk about your mom a lot. Her name's on your production company. Were your parents worried about you? At what point did they stop worrying? Did they know it was going to work out for you?
They didn't know it was going to work out, but they knew that my mother always believed I had a good head on my shoulders. And my
Yeah,
dad too, my stepfather, they always believed that like I'm going to be all right. Even when I moved to San Francisco to pursue the theater, literally, my parents always just said, do what makes you happy because they had jobs. They were like, we want you to actually be happy. So
right,
figure that out for yourself. And so, of course, I think my parents would be worried like anyone else, but my dad was a very, blue collar guy who sort of was like, he trusted I had to build myself to become the man that I needed to be. So he trusted
right.
wherever I was navigating. He just wanted to be me to be a man of my word and do what I say and be a good person. And and my mom she was the one who was always she wouldn't worry, but she would be my hype man, my my dream backer. She was just like, well, you know what? Because she would do things like I said this before, but she would write to Oprah all the
Right,
time.
right.
And I'm like, what is that? What is that going to do? So I was maybe a little cynical, but I think that her letters reached Oprah because Oprah is dearly in my life now. So my mother had to dream it. And she had to actually, sometimes I think that you need somebody else to dream for you because
Right.
sometimes you just can't see the vision. And I feel like that's what I think as as I'm in that old age of 55 years old, I can see that now. I can see that like, okay, sometimes, it's not even about what you dream, it's about what someone else dreams for you.
Yeah.
And even if that was sort of like embedded in your heart and sort of quiet, it did affect you. You did think about that. You weren't that cynical.
So I alluded to this. So I hear you always talking about the side hustles you've always had throughout your life and career. Like you
Still
bartend.
have them.
I know. What's the current side hustle? What are you working on?
Jobs. I just have a lot of
You do
jobs.
have a
That's
lot
what
of jobs. I've noticed. We've all noticed.
yeah.
Save some for the rest of us, man. Come on.
I'm impressed with how much I work. I'm like, oh my God, that's right. Even when people are like, oh, so what do you have going on? I'm usually like, oh, nothing, a couple things. And then we go down the list.
Oh, it's crazy.
It's staggering, but it's because I think I know I have a good work ethic and I like what I do. Um, so I guess that's it. My side hustles are just a lot of jobs. So
Yeah.
go continue. I'm going to
Well,
talk
I was
about my
going to
side.
say, here's one that I haven't heard you talk about, but you mentioned in passing. So, yes, bartending, a headshot photographer. I want to hear about dancing at bar mitzvahs, being the guy that gets everybody on their feet, because
That was the
that's
gig. That was the gig in New York, man. That was my gig. That's I found that because I think I just it was like I think literally it was like in Backstage magazine because they knew where to find
right.
the people who could dance and hype people up. So I answered that. I worked for this company. I felt like it was called Metropolitan or something. But they would test me out, and there's the host, there's the DJ, and then there's the dancers. Usually there's a core of like 4 to 6 dancers, depending on how big the bat mitzvah was. Now I'd never been to bat mitzvahs, and I didn't realize they were like as big as a wedding.
Oh,
And
yeah.
like whether it's the video projections and the money that was spent, I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible for that kid. That kid is like living. And then the thing is, with dance, I became because I was a good dancer. I was always the dancer at my college parties and stuff. So I would get, all somebody's bubby up dancing and kill. You get bubby up.
And
Everybody's on the dance
right.
because you want to see 85-year-old woman dance with
Everybody's
this
suddenly like, oh,
21-year-old black guy. They're like, oh my God, Bubby is killing it. And I'm like doing like It Takes Two or the Kid and Play or something. And we're tearing it up. And so everybody gets to the dance floor. And then the best thing is that if you're popular at one bar mitzvah,
oh yeah, the friend group, the parents, all they.
oh, they were throwing, especially, the sexy older women were also throwing their numbers like, oh my God, you've got to come, I have, my daughter. Terrible New York.
Not so bad.
Oh my God, but my daughter, hers is in 6 months. We gotta get you. We gotta get you. So you're like, yeah, all right, cool. And then you negotiate your fee a little higher.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I did this like for a couple of years, and I became a really highly paid gigolo, no, dancer for
You and Paul Rudd. Rudd did this too. You guys need to compare notes.
Of course he did. That makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just went. My two nieces just had a double bat mitzvah, so I wish I'd known
How
this
was that?
prior. I would have called
Double,
upon
wait,
your.
so they had a double bat mitzvah, and
Yeah.
was it supersized? Was it
Yeah.
like really?
I mean, I had
Yeah.
not been to one like this. Was exactly what you're saying, but
What
on
is the number
steroids.
of the? Well, I want to know. I want to get a ballpark of how much these things are costing people.
I
100
mean, I can
grand.
get my. You want me to zoom in my sister because it's been on her mind a lot. How
It's
much
gonna
that thing
hurt you. It's
costs?
it's it's like and yeah, it's a cost. Like and they
Cost.
would have like high end celebrities performing there too, which was awesome.
Crazy.
One day they had Taylor Dane performing. I was like,
Oh,
what? It's Taylor? And this wasn't too far after like Tell It to My Heart. She was like, I'm here for the gig, and I was like, I respect you, Taylor.
look, if things take a turn, Coleman, you can always go back to the bat mitzvah circuit.
Listen, and they don't even need to take a turn. I told you I like jobs. I could just do one on a Saturday, no problem.
He's available. He's really not available, but he's available apparently.
Sometimes you need that number. You get the number up, I might be able to do it.
Speaking about good gigs, this is a good segue into something that did change the course of your career, which was Fear the Walking Dead. Talk to me a little bit about your attitude going into that and how quickly it might have shifted. Like, did you have a little bit of like, this is not going to be
I
for
was a
me?
snob. Yes. Yes. I was a theater snob. I was like, absolutely not. And I just moved over to the agent that still represents me, Elizabeth Wiedersheim. And she literally said, oh my God, there's a show. It's the precursor to The Walking Dead. And I was like, what's that? They were like, you don't know The Walking Dead? It's just a huge show on AMC. I'm like, I don't watch TV. And so I know I really had an attitude when she was like, I'm going to see the script. I think you would really like this. And I was like, immediately I thought, well, obviously this person does not know me because she's going to send me some genre thing or some TV thing. I'm not interested. She sends me the sides, and it was fantastic. It was everything I thought. I was like, oh, I didn't know TV could be like this. It was rich. It was great storytelling, a really provocative character, and I thought I had a take on the character. So I sent that tape in without even thinking about it. And then literally a couple of days later, I got an offer just from a self-tape to be a series regular on Fear the Walking Dead. Apparently, I had a good take on it. So,
And that's a and,
so
and that's a legit game changer. I mean, that changes things. I mean,
no,
we always like to say,
it
yeah,
literally did change my entire career because I
yeah,
thought, like just before that, I thought that I had achieved what I was supposed to achieve, and I was kindly ready to step away from the whole industry because things were not just progressing the way I thought that made sense. I
right.
wasn't booking, I was working, I had no access or agency, and I was entering my mid 40s, and I was like, I can't sustain this. I need to, get a real job, or at least a job that makes sense, that
Yeah,
where I actually see how it's going to support me and maintain because the life of the artist was just too rocky for me at that time. And,
yeah,
I was trying to make a decision that where I wouldn't be bitter or hardened by this industry. And I wanted
right.
to step away while I still loved it. But then Fear the Walking Dead gave me footing back in the industry in a new way.
It's funny when I look at your career and I hear you talk about it and the long road it's been. I think of somebody that's come up a lot in your conversations. You worked with him a couple times, is Chadwick Boseman, who I had the privilege of knowing a bit too. And for those that don't know, Chadwick was working a while before it kind of all
Yep.
clicked. He was kind of under the radar, doing theater, doing small stuff. And I mean, how far back when did you and Chadwick connect?
You know what? I wish I can give you the exact year, but I'd like to say it was around 2005 or six
So
when we
this is way
started.
before 42, like you
Oh,
guys.
way before 42 and everything. Chadwick and I did a reading of a play together, and we just really liked each other. We were like, okay, it was just a good vibe. And then I was able to do the movie 42. I had a couple of scenes, and then they cut the whole character. So it's funny. That's always in my IMDb, but I'm cut out of the movie. But we had a great time together, and he was just like it was. We just always he just always had a twinkle and a smile in his eye with me because he knew that we could
Yeah.
sort of spar together. So by the time we got to Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, that was full out. It was I loved working with him. I loved that company, but I remember the first day I saw him, he was like, "Oh, Coleman, I can't wait to dance with you." And so for me, because he liked that sparring like with another actor. And we would challenge each other with our musicianship by learning our instrument. So everything about it was like because we respected each other so much. And we were like, I'm like, oh, okay, I see what you're doing with that instrument. Okay, now I'm gonna go practice mine even more. So kind of like
Right.
a friendly spar, which is great. I miss him.
And I feel like you two both share also. I mean, he talked a lot openly about like, the importance of representing culture and pushing culture and kind of like being at the center of culture as a black man today. Like what he did in the short time he was kind of like elevated to that kind of center status in film is such a
I think
inspiration.
I think and what a great thing to say. I think as I'm thinking about it right now, I think Chad and I, we always felt like, and I know he did, because I never just thought of him as an actor. I always thought he was so much more. When you watch him deliver like a commencement speech or the way he navigated the industry and the way he was a musician, even the way he walked through spaces and the way he wore his hat or the way he wore his clothes, he was just concerned with being, I don't know, such a bigger person than it just wasn't an artist. It was so much more. And I think that's how we sort of saw each other. We saw each other like, we're not limited and just like we're not just actors trying to get a gig, but we're trying to do something um, with this sort of responsibility that we have
Yeah.
as storytellers, as to engage with culture and society. Um, and we both we don't take it lightly. I do feel it's funny. I thought about this actually a while ago because I thought Chad was such my I'll tell you a story. Chad said, I remember the night before, um, the night before party. and he was being feted around town for Black Panther. And I see him at the night before party, and he's surrounded by a bunch of like, I feel like they were like CIA agents or something, but there was a whole team of people around him, and I had no team around me. I was just this guy came in from New York, went to the night before party, very happy to be there, and I hadn't seen him since 42, and I saw this evolution of him. And I was like, and I stepped up and I, hey, Chad, I don't know if you remember me. He's Colman Domingo. I was like, yeah, hey, Chad, how's it going? I said, I just want to congratulate you on our success for Black Panther. And he just looked at me. And then he turned to his whole team of people and like, this one right here, that's the truth. That one, keep your eye on him. Keep your eye on him. And I was like, oh, well, thank you so much. He was like, no, he said, nah. And he's grabbing somebody, said, that one right there. And so that explains Chad. He had enough for everybody.
Yeah.
He never believed he was challenged by anything. If anything, he lifted another person up. Especially, it's difficult sometimes in this industry, believing that there's enough, especially when if you're standing in spaces that are pretty limited. Right. But then you have somebody who's never, literally, he was like that all the way through, of being an advocate for fellow brothers.
Yeah. No, I mean, in an industry when sadly, like for a long time, arguably, it's like we're gonna let two black actors be leading men right now at a time. Yeah, that's our quota right now.
And he was never challenged by me, and of course, I always wanted to just lift him up as well. So I feel like we shared that. We literally share. We were born a day apart, different years, but we're both Sagittarians. We both love the fact that we're both born a day apart. So we felt like we were very kindred.
Here's a connection I'd like to make, and this has been tried to secret into the universe for a while. We need to get you into the MCU, man. Have we come close?
You know what? I am now.
Well, yes.
Well, but I think you want the live action. You want the live action.
I want the full Colman. I need the full Colman.
You want full-bodied Colman. Okay, I'm trying to give you a little bit of Norman Osborn.
No, I like it, and I've been liking it.
Yeah, Pete, you're liking it? Are you liking it?
I am. I'm enjoying it. What's it been like to be an iconic villain, albeit in?
It's cool, but I do want to get the live action out too. Yeah. Wouldn't that be kind of cool, right? Right. I mean, I would love to tear that up on the big screen. But I'm having a great time. I love the animation. I love the idea of playing Norman Osborn, and then you'll see his evolution to the Green Goblin in coming seasons, which would be very cool.
Amazing. So, I mean, I know you were made aware because people kept asking you about all the Kang rumors and everything. Like when you heard about that, like, oh, they're going to recast it with Colman. Do you initiate conversations with like your folks, say like, can I talk to somebody at Marvel and see if there's something to talk about?
Listen, after a while, when it was constantly in the press and on places like, Twitter, I was like, wait a minute. Is this true? Am I being talked about for gigs? So I literally called up my team and said, are you guys having conversations that I don't know anything about? They're like, no, I don't know. And then I was like, are you guys being cagey or what? And they weren't. I don't think so. But I think that there had been conversations of me coming into Marvel in some way. So we did follow up with a sit-down meeting with the heads of Marvel. So I did do that. And we talked openly about the landscape of Marvel or even like the Kang rumors. And I personally knew that, like, listen, I'm just all about energy, and I just want to like do things that make sense and brings gentle energy. But I feel like I want a role to be mine, whatever that role is, whatever I develop. I don't want to, something didn't feel right of me, like, oh, would I replace someone or so? I said, no, I want to build something from the ground up that's my own. So I feel like that was never a conversation from my point of view. You know what I mean? If I was discussed, I still don't know if I was discussed, but I just know that I would want to build something from the ground up. So there's still talks.
Okay. Speaking of talks, Euphoria seems a little more real now for the next season. Can I put money on this? You guys are actually going to get before the cameras. You're going to shoot another season of Euphoria. You feeling confident?
Cameras are up. Yes. Yeah, we're in production right now. Yeah.
Oh, you are?
We are.
I didn't realize that. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So you shot footage of the new season?
I haven't shot yet, but we are shooting now.
Oh,
Yes.
amazing.
I'm being
That's so
cagey, right?
No, I love it. Now I'm excited to hear this. So,
Yeah.
can you demystify this a little bit for me? Because I had a long conversation recently with Lily Rose Depp about Sam. She loves Sam Levinson. Oh, I've
Yeah.
spoken to a bunch of actors that love Sam Levinson, and yet there's this kind of like I don't know, this aura of like chaos that surrounds like Euphoria and The Idol. And yet I know you've spoken very beautifully about this collaboration with Sam. What are people not getting? Like what's the disconnect on the Sam Levinson production
You
front?
know, I wish I knew what other people were thinking or how they thought about it or where this chaos comes from. And I'm being very sincere about it because I've never had any of those experiences on set or in development or around my friend Sam. Sam's a good man. He's got a good heart. He every in my whole experience, he would hand me the pen and say, well, "What do you think about the character?" He really wants to be a collaborator, and he runs a pretty calm set. I just think that there's, this film skyrocketed into the zeitgeist, and and my friend Sam does not speak well and speak in press,
Right.
and so people try to put things on him because they can't they want to put something on it, and whether it's based on the work and the material, and they want to assume many things. That's what I think it is because it's hot in the zeitgeist, and I know that Sam's just very concerned about doing the work and creating good story more than
Yeah.
anything, and not the noise. I
Right.
think that's actually what I think.
Okay. No, I
I don't
appreciate
think
the
I've ever,
honesty
I don't
there.
think I've
Yeah.
ever said it in such a succinct way, but I think that's exactly it. I think the noise will be noise because the show is so huge in the zeitgeist, and
Yeah.
people will put on it whatever they want to put on it, you know?
All right, I want to hit up a few more things, and then I promise to let you go because you do have so many side hustles going. So speaking of
So
you,
many.
speaking of Euphoria, I love Sydney Sweeney, and I love that she's the one that came to you with doing this film about Sammy Davis and Kim Novak. By the way, new fan of David Johnson, great casting there. This guy has the goods.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
Nice,
Um,
Cody.
so is this on the docket for later this year? You're trying to get this in
It
production?
is. It's on for later this year. Our plan is to shoot it after Euphoria. Yeah, I plan on going into prep before Euphoria ends. So my goal is to at least in the fall be shooting this with Sydney and David.
Amazing. Do you connect with Cindy on that kind of like side hustle thing? Because I feel like she is a hustler in the best possible way.
Yeah,
She
she likes a lot
wants
of
it
jobs.
all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she likes a lot of jobs. I think Sydney is one of the smartest um, young actresses, I think, of modern times. She knows where she is in this industry and then where she would like to be,
Right.
you know? And I think she's not afraid of hard work and she's very kind and she's really smart.
I
She
think
reminds me of
people
like I
underestimate
don't
her at their own peril. I think
well,
she is not.
they underestimated Marilyn Monroe, didn't they? And
Yeah.
Marilyn Monroe had a production company. She had
Yep.
deals. She was, and but all Lucille Ball. I feel
Right.
like
Right.
she's stepping into that territory, or even what like Sandra Bullock has done for herself. I
Right.
think Sydney is in line with these women.
It must be a nice phone call to get from Steven Spielberg many years after a nice, juicy, small little role in Lincoln, and that to get, presumably, I imagine this is a juicier role in a big old UFO. We know that that's at least somewhat the subject matter of the next Spielberg directing effort. Um, what's it like to know that you're going to be front and center with Steven pretty soon?
It's so lovely because Stephen is such a good man, a great collaborator. We've had great phone calls and he's just very easy and I can't say it enough. He's very kind and he'll send you information to digest and he says, you can always call me anytime. So he's that true collaborator. He says, literally, you want me to call you at any time when I have a question? Yeah, that's what I want. So I feel like whatever seeds that were planted years ago when I even auditioned for Steven in New York, and he walks through Bernie Telsey casting office with a baseball cap on and I think a Diet Coke in his hand, and he goes, "Hello." I'm like, "It's Steven Spielberg." I still feel that way, but now I know it's Steven, my friend, who I don't know. He can't be more affectionate. He's so affectionate and kind, and he just wants to still do good work. And I think he works as if he is doing it for the first time. He always feels, I feels like he feels inventive, like he's just getting started, you
Oh, I
know?
mean, his West Side Story was one of the best films I think he's made in his career, and just to see that he's still operating on that level,
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. So I'm excited. We have a beautiful cast. I look forward to working with all of them. And so, yeah, we'll get started on that soon.
So where on the spectrum of alien movies is it more Close Encounters or War of the Worlds? What's the vibe?
I think it's something new.
Okay.
I think it's
Okay.
something new and different. Um, but I tell you one thing it has so much heart, and it has I feel like it's a love letter to our humanity.
And he co-wrote this one. So, and he doesn't do that often. He doesn't,
No, he co-wrote this one because so I feel like this is very Steven Spielberg. It's probably more Steven Spielberg than Steven Spielberg.
amazing. Well, I'm hyped already, and now I'm more hyped. Okay, the only other one I want to mention that I think you've shot already, big Edgar Wright fan. How
Running
is
Man, yeah, I
how
shot
is
that.
so you're Richard Dawson territory. I know it's a much different take. That movie was its own thing. This is more true to the book. I know
Dude,
it.
and in Edgar's hands, my God, I had such a good time. I was like shot out of the cannon. If I had a blast, especially with Glenn Powell and Josh Brolin and Lee Pace. They're all great dudes. We had a great time. And Edgar's mind is so vast, and you just want to get inside his brain, and you're like, it's the film itself is like sort of this dystopian, chaotic world where murder is the game show,
Right.
and it feels feels timely. It feels like I have such a pulse. I'm excited for people to see it. You know,
Amazing. All right, I'm going to let you go on this. We end every episode with the happy, sad, confused, profoundly random questions. A little rapid fire for you, buddy. Are you a dog or a cat person?
my dog or cat person? I'm a cat person.
Okay, there are no
Yeah.
wrong answers. All good. Do you collect anything?
Do I collect anything? Yes, I collect architecture books.
Nice. Okay. Were you ever a game person? Do you have a favorite video game of all time?
Pac-Man,
Classic. Can't go wrong. Can't go
right?
wrong. Here's a provocative one. Would you rather be 4 feet taller or 4 feet shorter?
4 feet shorter. I don't know. I feel like being that tall, I'm like, that's going to be really awkward in spaces. I don't know. It feels very uncomfortable. So
I get it.
I'll go for smaller.
What's the wallpaper on your phone?
What's the wallpaper on my phone? That's boring. California.
Oh, well, okay. It's
That's
the
so I
least
know where maybe that's so I know where I am because sometimes I travel, sometimes I have no idea where I am. So
it's a good
I look it up.
reminder.
I guess
It's
not
the
feel
least
bad
exciting
though.
thing
It feels
about you.
bad.
Everything else is exciting. The
It
wallpaper
feels,
doesn't have to be.
it feels so boring.
Is the last actor you were mistaken for? Does that ever happen?
Oh yeah, Idris Elba.
Okay.
I'll take that though. That's
Take
fine.
that. I mean, come on. Worst note a director has ever given you.
I'll see. This is a terrible thing because I feel like when they give me a bad note, I just look at them like they're crazy, like they grew 3 heads, and I just don't take it. I'm
But
like,
that's okay. Doesn't
I
change that the note's bad.
maybe that's it. Maybe I don't know. I just give a glare that makes people feel like I'm going to incinerate them on the spot.
Get away from me with your bad notes.
Yeah,
And in the spirit of happy, sad, confused, who's an actor you always see on screen that makes you happy? You see them and you're immediately in a better mood.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Gold standard. A movie that always makes you sad.
It's a Wonderful Life.
And finally, a food that makes you confused, Coleman. You don't get it. Why do people eat that?
Barada.
Are you what? I can't even compute that. Why?
Burrata, what does it taste like?
It's
Nothing.
it's creamy deliciousness.
It's not
No.
creamy or nothing. It tastes like a paper. It just tastes like anything. You got to put olive oil and basil or something on it. You got to make it something. But it has zero flavor and zero purpose. And people are always trying to pull out a burrata salad. And you're like, I don't understand it. I don't get it.
Wow. Someone wronged you. Someone gave you the wrong burrata
But
because you
somebody jacked me up with burrata. I don't like it. I don't want it. Don't you ever give me burrata.
no burrata for this man, but
Yeah.
more nominations, more acclaim. It's all coming your way. Well deserved. Everybody check out Sing Sing if you haven't already. It's a beautiful performance, a beautiful film. Have a blast at the Oscars. You're a regular now. They just have that seat waiting for you.
Good. Thank you.
This was really a pleasure, man. I've wanted to do this one for a while. So thank you for
Oh, Josh,
everything today.
this is a blast. Thank you so much, man.
And so ends another edition of Happy, Sad, Confused. Remember to review, rate, and subscribe to this show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm a big podcast person. I'm Daisy Ridley, and I definitely wasn't pressured to do this by Josh.